Welcome back to another episode of the Cape Copcast Chiefs Chat Edition. I'm one of your hosts, Lisa Greenberg.
And I'm Officer Mercedes Simons. Together we make up the Public Affairs Office, and we have Chiefs Chat, but we have Chiefs Chat with a special guest. Not only do we have Chief Tony Sizemore, we also have Sergeant Joe Zalenski.
And welcome.
He's a recurring guest. If you've seen him before, he's been on. He still holds the same role as last time, being a school resource officer sergeant. However, we brought him on today to talk a little bit about some of the different things we're doing over this summer, and I don't want to spoil it.
I got a question.
Ooh.
What do SROs do during the summer?
I think that's a question we get often because, the SROs over the school year, they don't get any vacation. They're in the schools every single day. They're in the schools when the teachers are in the schools, all of that. So that's why we wanted you on to talk about that. And it's more than just training, spoiler alert. There's a lot that goes into the summer, and you guys stay pretty busy.
I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity.
Is this your third time? Honor Guard?
Honor Guard.
SRO?
SRO. Yeah, I think third.
Yeah, okay.
I think besides the chief, he's our most popular guest.
So I'm assuming that after the third time I get a set of steak knives.
A permanent spot, who knows?
Okay. I don't think anybody wants to hear my voice that much.
I don't think that's true. But let's get into it, right? This is something that we've been getting a lot of questions about. So first off, I think as Chief asked, what is the big thing or the main things you guys do over the summer?
So being a part of the SRO unit and being an SRO in particular has some limitations that are not throughout the department. If somebody needs to take a day off, then they can, as long as staffing is adequate and the supervisor can see their way to not having that officer in or replace them, they can take that day off, whereas an SRO does not have that flexibility. If the school is in, the SRO is in. So that severely limits their ability to use their leave time. And as officers become senior, there is a benefit that we have here in the police department called use or lose time. And it's exactly what it says. If you don't use that time, you lose it, and it has to be used by the end of the fiscal year. So we encourage the SROs to utilize their leave time during either the prescribed vacation times during the school year or over the summer. And so over the summer, we see a lot of our officers utilizing their leave time, so that way it does not impact their service to the school, which the school year starts either August 10th or the very first day after. This year, it's going to be August 11th. So we have to organize that. In addition to us organizing their leave time, we also have to ensure that the training is being kept up on. So this gives us a little bit of flexibility with the new training center, with the access that we have to our in-house range. We're able to accomplish a lot more of the things that we want to do when it comes to emergency responses. We have the shoot room available to us. We have the live fire range as well. And it may not be commonly known, but every SRO must qualify to the same standard as our SWAT team, which is it's either 35 out of 30 of the new FDLE course or 36 out of 40 with the police carbine. So that is a very perishable skill, one that we need to give them the opportunity to work on all the time. And the summertime gives us a little bit more flexibility normally for us to be able to give them more range time.
Yeah.
So so that opportunity exists. And in addition to the shoot room, we're also able to create scenario-based training where the SRO can operate within what I would consider to be a different type of structure than what the typical patrol officer or detective or a special operations officer may find in their workspace. Because you are operating in a school. So there's a lot more nuance to the response. And there's a lot more, there's going to be a high price for a mistake no matter where we make it. But in a school environment, it could be immensely tragic and heartbreaking and very community damaging if we make a mistake in those areas. Because these are people who trust us with their safety, and we don't want to be the reason why any of them are injured.
Absolutely.
So that training is integral and very important to our unit.
And you guys get additional training beyond just what regular patrol and the other officers in the department get. We have, for those who don't know, we have regularly scheduled in-service days every quarter. So the school resource officers have to attend that, but then they also utilize summer breaks to add on the additional training that the other officers don't get because of the specialized nature and high-risk liability of their job.
Correct. Yeah, and we use some dates around the calendar. Every so often, there'll be a day here or there. Rosh Hashanah happens to be a day we usually utilize for training. So there's nobody at the schools. The teachers are off. We take advantage of that, and we deploy training for the officers and give them more opportunities to work with the skills of the trade.
Right. Plus, over the summer months, we have camps and different things like that. This week we had football camp. There was PAL camp. You've been at the camps every day. So that's a busy time for the school resource officers because that's the people that are there.
Before we dive into that, I wanted to hit one thing on the training that kind of popped into my head. And we've said it in a general sense about training, but this is a concrete example. You do not rise to the occasion in life. That is a fallacy, right? What you do is fall back to the highest level of training that you have, that you're competent in. So if you get assigned to an SRO unit, you go to the basic SRO school, which is just that, basic, that's what you're going to fall back to. If you do no training after that, and you just year in, year out, go to school, you got summers, you do, some of the other activities we're going to do, you're going to fall quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it, the stakes are super high, and it is literally life and death. These are the most precious people in our community are our students, and then our teachers and our other non-educational staff that are at school. There's other parents that are there. And when something happens, you don't miraculously shake off stress, cool as a cucumber, and do something that you've done once in your life or maybe never have done or saw in a PowerPoint. What you're going to do is fall back in auto response to what your body is accustomed to, what neural pathways you have carved, and start acting. Well, in order to do that, we have to carve those pathways for you. We have to provide you with that training. So that is our new training facility. He mentioned what's called a shoot house, which is, if you remember when the SEALs went and got bin Laden, right? You remember that story? Mm-hmm. They had a hangar and constructed a scale model or replica of his house.
Right.
Oh.
And they drilled it and drilled it and drilled it to where the highest stress you can imagine on planet Earth, you fall back to a pretty high level that you have drilled and trained and trained. We use that same concept at the training center with a modular wall system where you can replicate. We use airsoft, speed of life, just like the model of Glock that we carry, but it shoots a modified ammunition that has a paintball on the end. Still dangerous, but it's not lethal force. And we can replicate a single-family dwelling, the interior of a bedroom, a shopping center, and up to and including a school where you're going down hallways and entering. And so we drill that. And like Joe said, on a teacher in-service day where they may not be on campus, they may be downtown. It could be at the tail end of spring break. It could be any opportunity that we get. In the summer is another great opportunity to utilize a campus and actually do the training, because he mentioned it's the same level as SWAT. When we reinstituted our SRO program some years ago, we didn't want to just fill spaces. We wanted it to serve as an elite unit. These are people with former military, former SWAT. They meet the same standards as that, former detectives. This is a sought after position. You can't just fall into it. You don't get hired off the street, put into a school. You earn that right to be there. So I didn't want to gloss over that. And then school starts August 11th. All of our SROs are on campus at a minimum the week before.
Yeah.
Getting reacclimated to the surroundings, to the staff, to the new administrators that may be on campus, and getting prepared. So that lockdown on leave time starts at the end of July.
Yeah.
It runs all the way through till winter break. And we utilize training. There's some leave time that can be released a little bit, but not much. And then we go to spring break, and then we wrap up the end of the year. And there's a lot of people that have well-deserved time off.
Yeah.
And then I'll kind of set the stage and let you guys talk about it because you're in it and leading it. But we have several different a multi-prong, we'll use that, approach with juveniles off school.
Yeah.
Right? It's a year-long job being an SRO. So we do mentorship, we do follow-up, we do enforcement operations, and everything in between. We have organized camps through Police Athletic League, through the Explorer Post. We also have officers that are out on the street hitting hot spots, checking on juvenile offenders for recidivism rate. And we've already, I think after one day of school being out, have seen success from that.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I'll let you and Sergeant Z dive into that.
Yeah, I think we see mentorship during the summer in one way or another, whether we're doing it with the kids, because that's the point. We utilize our school resource officers and reappropriate them for whatever summer tasks we have, whether it be like the camps like we talked about. That way they're still interacting with the same kids they know and the kids that love them. In positive ways, or in a different kind of positive way, we work with the is it juvenile probation office? Is that the
Department of Juvenile Justice,
Yes.
juvenile probation officers locally here. We just ran what we normally see, and the chief can back me up on this one, probably better than I can quote the statistics. But normally there is an uptick in crime when school is out,
yeah
and in particular the summer. So that winds up falling on our patrol division.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this iteration of what we have now is, I don't think there's any new idea in law enforcement. Every idea that came along, we've just improved upon.
Mm-hmm.
The gist of it being officer investigates and arrests criminal. And everything else supports that mission from the beginning. But my involvement started in 2010 when I was a North District Sergeant with, at that time, Sergeant Costin, who was my opposite number on the other evening shift. And we both noticed once school let out that the burglary rate skyrocketed. So we had an opportunity to put our heads together and said, well, we're noticing a trend that the kids who are involved in these already have sanctions on them. What happens if we just enforce the sanctions that exist now? So we began that process, and we saw that develop into the responsibility switched over to our street crimes unit. And then it fell back onto the Patrol Bureau to some degree until 2018 when we were able to reinstitute the SRO program. Currently, in addition to the camps that you're talking about, we also are contractually obligated to provide SRO service to anyone who's running a summer school in the city as well. So if a school is having a summer school, there is an SRO there. So there's a bit of a scheduling jockeying moment for all the supervisors in community services, where we're ensuring that if the SRO who is assigned to, for argument's sake, Mariner Middle is on vacation this week or this month, we need to cover down and make sure that people who are not out are there to ensure our contractual obligations are met. In addition to that, the officers who don't find themselves tasked during any particular one day or so, they have the opportunity to be able to go out to these hot spots that we've discussed. We see a lot of the problems with the e-bikes. Well, that's becoming what I would consider to be a bit of a burden on the Patrol Bureau with the responses. Juveniles are going to do what juveniles have done since the dawn of time. They're going to congregate, they're going to associate, they're going to hang out, they're going to try to have some fun, and sometimes, unfortunately, that leads them into some trouble. So I look at it as the opportunity of a sworn officer who has already built some of these bridges or is more familiar with dealing with juveniles in particular, and can easily not that our regular officers can't do that. That's absolutely not true. But this is our this is our sweet spot. Right. This is the wheelhouse. So I'm used to talking to a juvenile in a way that I can get buy-in, or I can speak to an adult in their life and say, hey, I'd like to offer you this opportunity, or would you consider sending your child to this so we don't see them? Because I don't think any SRO ever wants to see any child in this city ever get in trouble or get arrested. We don't want that. It's not like we're going to get some bonus because we arrested 5 kids this week. I think we all kind of look at that as SROs as, I don't want to say a failure, but something we need to improve upon, and we need to build that bridge even bigger than we have now, or there needs to be a bridge built. And a lot of these situations stem from situations that are beyond our control. They could be familial. They could experience a loss at home that they're not handling very well. There could be mental health components. There could be the potential for substance abuse, even in young children. So we want to try to get them off those paths as quickly as possible. And that mentoring relationship that we already have built through the SRO program can still pay dividends across the summer. And that's why we're looking so much at the SROs as being able to maintain those bridges, maintain those relationships. So that way, when the officer who comes to your door is your SRO, you've seen this person, you've interacted with this person, you've talked to them, hopefully, and you already know what you're getting with that officer, whereas it's random Officer X showing up at the door and you're like, okay, well, I don't have a relationship with you, or this isn't a relationship that The patrol officer's job is to put a Band-Aid on every problem and move on to the next crisis. Whereas this is something that's probably going to require a little more intensive attention, a little more mentoring, I would think a lot more empathy. And the goal being, I want to get this young citizen to a place where they are not going to be regretting decisions. And the teachers say it to them all the time. One of the first things I learned as an SRO is make good decisions. And that very quickly resonated in my head. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Tell kindergartners to make good decisions. So that way when they're in 12th grade, they're making good decisions. So I tell them that, you've been told all your life, make good decisions. This is not a good decision. So the mentoring aspect of that, and they're hearing it from multiple angles now. They're probably hearing from a parent. They're definitely hearing it from a teacher. And now they're hearing it from a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
That your decision making is not where it needs to be. Can we help you fix your decision maker to get you somewhere more productive, somewhere where you're not going to have to deal with people dressed like me in adulthood, which is ultimately our goal. I've always looked at it as an elementary school SRO. If I'm doing my job correctly, I'm turning over a student to my middle school SRO who is going to be able to build an inroad immediately. And they're not going to be somebody that the middle schooler shies away from.
Right.
If the middle school SRO does their job correctly, they're going to turn over a young high schooler who's going to know that that is a resource and not somebody that they have to fear or avoid. And what I'm hoping that is once they graduate high school in 12th grade, they become an adult that feels that way as well and understands the role of policing and that it's not some sort of occupation, but it's more of someone who's guarding them and ensuring they're safe. And if an unfortunate situation comes around where we have to remove them temporarily from the populace, that's because they made a bad decision. Hopefully they can have accountability and they can move forward in their lives and not make that a defining moment.
Right.
Yeah. And I think you get a different level of respect. I think they take advice and words of wisdom a lot better when it comes from someone they know and hopefully respect. And that's the purpose of building the relationships during the school year and then turning around and building those relationships during the summer too.
And for life. They're really relationships for life. Two things. When he talked about sanctions and checking on kids on the enforcement, quote unquote, there is mentorship within the enforcement if it's done right. So here's what happens when there's an absence of any enforcement or checking on sanctions. So what are sanctions? If a group of young kids goes out and they're car hopping, we've talked about what that is. They get caught, they have burglary charges, but they're 12, 13, and 14, these three boys. They're going to get put on home detention, which is just what it sounds like. You have to be home between certain hours. If nobody's checking on them and they have other factors at home that maybe precipitated this, and now nobody's checking to make sure that they're on abiding by home detention, they're going to be right back out doing that. And police departments and us included, if we do not help out the JPOs, or juvenile probation officers, to check on these kids, they're going to be back out reoffending and getting worse, or potentially getting worse. By having a dedicated, everything we just talked about, the bridges, the relationships, by having that group, and also I know that kid by face. I know exactly who that is. I know where he lives. I know where he's going. I know who he hangs with. If you go and check, you're supposed to be home by 6 p.m. And at 6:01, you knock on the door and he or she's not there, it's a violation. And if they're not there, there's a chance that they're back out, reoffending.
Right.
So you can stop it at that point. But if they are home, it's not, you're home, I didn't get to lock you up. That's not the relationship. The relationship is a perfect mentoring opportunity. Hey, you are making good decisions right now. You are home. How long are you on detention for? Let's keep it up. That way you can get released from it. You're on the right path, because if you monitor properly and do the enforcement side of it the right way, your recidivism rate drops dramatically. And if we all believe in the criminal justice system, win some cases, lose some cases, it's about rehabilitation, particularly with juveniles.
Yeah.
The goal is to not make career criminals out of 13-year-olds.
Right.
It's to let them put a bad decision behind them and get on the path forward. And that's a big opportunity that we are taking with our juvenile probation, because there could be upwards of 30 to 50 throughout the city that have all different kinds of sanctions imposed upon them. So we work to make sure that they're abiding so they can get off of it. And you do have some that will willfully choose. It's a small percentage. You're talking 6%, 5% that are just determined to reoffend and get bad. We now know, because we have those relationships, good and bad, who they are, who they run with. If a detective is working a criminal matter and they put out a picture internally, hey, I got a still from a surveillance. Who is this kid? We have 40 people that got a good opportunity. To
and
go
they're pretty good at that
I know
too.
who that
Very.
is, and they pick them out, and the parents appreciate it, and you just want every positive opportunity that you could take. So a football camp, automatically positive, right? A traditional summer camp at a campus environment or at Sunsplash, obviously that's a good opportunity. But if you work at it and if you're professional about it and have a heart and a spirit of rehabilitation and getting these young people back on the right path, those sanction checks or juvenile probation checks are wonderful opportunities to nudge them back onto the sidewalk of the right way.
Right. Makes sense. And it's a good use of the time that is available, although it's not as much time as people might think. So
Well, I wanted to borrow a couple of SROs for an event that we're doing. We're doing a Junior Detective Day, and I'm like, oh, there's got to be like plenty of SROs available to help. No, there was 3, and I need all 3. So now they're gone for those 2 days that we're doing that, and that there's a very limited availability to be able to steal them from because they are so busy. And if they are available, they're still out doing tasks, doing those extra juvenile checks on top of the operations that we're doing. So it's pretty impressive.
Summer is shorter than you think.
oh man, it flies.
They're already a couple of weeks in, and we're talking the beginning of August. And if you're going to get some vacation time, which they need to get, we must get training time. And then you're doing all these other things. It gets eaten up fast.
Yep. It's so true. It's so true. But the work is so important. And I'm glad we could come on here today and kind of break down for the people who are wondering what is done during this time period. Things are quieter, but not necessarily on that front. You know, like things in general. The restaurants aren't as busy. Things are slowing down. People have that time to go on vacation in the city of Cape Coral. But for us, it's busy.
Never stops.
Never stops.
It's quieter, but not quiet.
Exactly.
It's fair. You know what? We don't want it to
We need the
we don't want it to be totally quiet, you know?
I do want to touch on one quick thing before we wrap.
Yeah.
There may be a misnomer in the general public that a lot of these students, the youngsters who are on sanctions, and like the chief said, they might be on 6 to 6, which means they need to be in the house during a curfew, or they have certain criteria where they have to take drug analysis tests, or they can't be around certain individuals. I've seen it actually written in their requirements.
Yeah.
They cannot be around X, Y, and Z because every time they're around them, there's trouble. But some of the juveniles are on sanction for legitimately serious crimes, felonies, violent felonies, weapons-related charges. This isn't just a couple of kids who decided to go out and car hop one night, which is also a felony, but it's a nonviolent felony. And unfortunately, hey, Cape Coral, please lock your car doors.
True.
But, you know, I guess we can all look at that as sort of a more harmless crime, but it is heavily, it's a felony, so it's a serious crime. But some of the individuals who we check on are legitimate criminal behaviors, which unfortunately, you know, it's not what we want, and we're desperate to turn them around and get them onto the right path. But some of these youngsters have committed some pretty serious crimes that we're checking on to make sure that they don't commit them again.
Yeah.
So, and it's not the majority, and it's not the norm, but there's a handful that we need to keep a very close eye on.
Yeah, and a lot of things escalate too. Like we've seen a lot of kids who started out, I mean, we track a lot of things with public affairs. You see a lot of kids who start out car hopping, and then they're car hopping and stealing guns out of cars, and then all of a sudden they're committing robberies. It's things that escalate, and as they get more comfortable doing these crimes, it becomes more and more serious, a danger to them, everybody else, and that's the whole point of trying to get a hold of what's going on, early intervention, early mentorship, to try to make sure that crime in this city stays down and that we have good citizens within it, with the kids.
Absolutely.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our partnership with the juvenile probation officers as well as the Lee County STET team and their youth services. They're always a phone call away, and they're very helpful. So I'd like to make sure that we recognize their cooperation and partnership with us.
Absolutely.
What is STET?
School Threat Enforcement Team.
That's
There we
it.
go. All right, gentlemen, anything else?
That's it. Stay
All
cool.
right. Yeah, for real, it is hot out there.
Everyone
Going
have a
out to
great
those
summer.
camps.
And August 11th will be here in about a week.
Before we know it, I know,
You're
right?
not wrong.
It's going to fly by. All right, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Stay safe. Thank you for listening to the Cape Copcast, where we dive into the heart of the Cape Coral Police Department safety initiatives, community relations, and the insightful stories of different officers that make up our department.
Please like and share our podcast. If you have feedback, you can email capepdpao@capecoral.gov. And remember to follow us on social media. Our handle is @CapePD on all major platforms. Stay safe, stay Cape.